listen, I got to ask some questions about something I know you are really passionate about, and we're fortunately starting to come out of this pandemic, but you've got more involvement in the food industry and the restaurant industry. We'll talk about the television part of it in a minute, but what in the world did this do to the restaurant industry for this 2 years? They rallied around the airline industry, but man, they were sure slow coming to the support of the restaurant industry. What did it do to these people for 2 years, shutting everything down?
Well, it's so funny that you use the airline industry as an example, and I'm happy that anybody was supported. I mean, you
Sure.
know it. You're a frontline guy. You're aware of, got your finger on the pulse. The airline industry is owned by a lot of big people with a lot of big money and a lot of big unification. And the restaurant industry isn't as unified. As although we're all brothers and sisters of the business, and most everybody loves each other and wants to help each other. There's an organization, the National Restaurant Association, which is kind of the biggest voice we have. But otherwise, it's a bunch of individuals.
Yeah.
And that doesn't give you as much muscle as if you're a United Airlines with stockholders and and all those connections that they have. So yeah, it was incredibly difficult. And again, don't get me wrong, I'm happy that anybody got love and support from the government and got some recognition and some money. But in the restaurant business, the restaurant industry is filled with a bunch of creative, adapting, facing difficult situations and achieving through them. And that's what it really is. I've always said that I'm a jack of all trade and a master of none. We are marketing, we are electricians, we are cooks, we are servers, we are accountants, we're all of it. And so what we watch the industry do, which we do so well, is we learn to pivot. Not everybody made that pivot. Not everybody was able to transition to outdoor dining or transition to how to bring in money and how to get their team. So not everybody made it. But fortunately, after 2 years now, we're coming out of the fog, out of the fire, out of the smoke, and we're starting to see restaurants rebuild and reopen, and new restaurants come about. But in that time that we've been through it, there's been a lot of suffering, a lot of people lost.
Well, I really wonder how many local mom and pops that had been in business for 20, 25, 30 years because it's such a low margin business. I wonder how many of them closed that never got back open and they just lost everything in 2 years that they had had for 20, 25 years.
Tens of thousands.
Is it
Tens of
that much?
thousands. Oh yeah. And the thing that's so difficult about it is even those that have come back now, there's been such an employment shortage that, I was just having a big staff meeting with my team today, and we're opening restaurants around the country. And that's the number one thing is everybody's like, where did everyone go? Where's the workforce? And so people, it wasn't even, so maybe it wasn't their finances, probably wasn't because of their food, because they were already in business before the pandemic happened. A
Right.
lot of them really came under fire because they just couldn't get staff.
Yeah.
That's what people don't understand as much as they're like, oh, why did that place go out of business? It really probably wasn't their finances. I mean, granted, you run out of money after a while. Some landlords weren't giving some consideration to the situation. But so many times when I would check a past triple D joint that we did and say what happened to them, and people just say couldn't get staff, can't get staff, can't pay the bills.
Well, I'm wondering what you and they have found out to be the issue because it appears to me, and listen, I've just talked to people that were in the hospitality business as wait staff or front desk hosts or hostesses that have just straight up said, look, I can make more money staying at home. I don't have to get childcare. I don't have to do the commute. I don't have to have the wardrobe. And it appears to me from a psychological standpoint, we're rewarding bad behavior. We're paying people not to work. Am I wrong, or is it more complex than that? I'm sure there are other
No,
factors, but that's got to be one of them.
as always, boss, you got your finger on the pulse of America, and you're reading it. You're seeing the forest through the trees. Do not misunderstand me when I say there are people, there are single family, single parent families. There are situations that are situations. that it
Right.
does not make financial sense. But I think we've just got an abundance of people that are looking at it saying, listen, I don't do anything. I get paid similar amount. I don't have to make the hassle to drive the commute, the thing, this. And yeah, do I think there's that epidemic? Is epidemic the right word? Do I think there's that problem? Yes, I really do. I don't have like clinical information to explain it, but I do know from enough of my friends and enough of my restaurants that will say to people, "Where are they? What are they doing?" And people are just like, and nobody's waving the flag saying, "Hey, just so you know, I'm over here doing this, and this is how I'm getting away with it." No one's getting really loud about it, but there is enough undercurrent and enough undertone with folks that this is really, we've got to figure out how to stop this because we're setting the wrong example. We were just having a conversation the other day about how do kids that went through kindergarten and first grade, never going to school, now acclimate coming into second grade. And the same thing goes with people, these young adults that are coming out of high school that didn't get to finish high school in high school, now get into college, haven't been to the college, and haven't had a job. How do we acclimate them into coming into the workforce now? I mean, we've had a 2-year break that if we don't recycle, if we don't recalibrate, if we don't do something, I think we're going to feel this echo, this reverberation of this unemployment, lack of workforce for quite a while. And then what's going to happen, and I think you probably are aware of this, once this does come full cycle, there's going to be a lot of jobs that people are looking for that there aren't any jobs because people figure out how to replace them with technology or lack of. I mean, restaurants that are going to single serve, going to counter service versus doing full service. And these types of jobs in the restaurant business have been so critical to our workforce in America because they're typically the second job for somebody. So that's given families the opportunity because of the adaptability of hours in the restaurant business being from early morning to late night, that people have been able to do their job and then have a second job or have a job on the weekends and create that extra income. But I'm worried that when the workforce does wake up or the funding is cut back, that they kind of look at it and go, "Oh, wait a second, why is there no more jobs?" Well, because restaurants had to figure out how to do it.
I'm glad you mentioned it because there are some people that legitimately are doing something different. There are single moms out there that
Absolutely.
the math just doesn't work because of a commute or because they've had to do something else. They're doing what they have to do for their family and for their kids. I get it. But I've also talked to those people that, and it's anecdotal, I acknowledge that, but they're just telling me, look, I'm no idiot. I can do the math. I'm getting paid not to work and I'm not going to work. And then they go get some part time job for cash or whatever, and they're actually making more money and not paying taxes on it. Really, it violates one of the most fundamental principles of psychology. Don't reward bad behavior. And we're paying people to not work. And then we say, what's wrong with supply chain? Why can't we get people to come in on the job? Because we're paying them not to. That just drives me crazy.
Well, I don't know. I met your son, and I remember we had that lunch in Beverly Hills one time, and so you've been through this as a parent, but it's watching my youngest son Ryder play basketball, and I remember when he was in little basketball, when he was little kid, and there were some times that we went and played, and there was no score,
Yeah.
and I'm like, what are we teaching?
Yeah.
And my thing, do not get me wrong. I hate when my kid loses a game. I hate him crying in the car, not now, and now he's 16. But I hated that. But you know what it was? Those are the teaching times. That's when we talked about it, not about blaming the other players or blaming yourself or focusing, is we focus on what we can do better. I mean, so when we get into this thing of not participating in the reality, then I think the word I used recently was homogenize. We're just pasteurizing everything. And where's the entrepreneurial spirit? Where are we generating that from? So no, I'm with you 1,000%. There are instances where people need that support, and amen. I think we should do everything we can. We're the strongest country in the world. We should act upon it. But in the same respect, we got to pull the blinders off and be responsible to the fact that we are putting ourselves in a situation where this is going to hurt a lot longer than we think if we keep this up.
Yeah, and I'm concerned about what that does when people are out of, as you mentioned, school or out of the workforce for a couple of years, because one of the most comprehensive studies to date has just been released by the National Bureau of Economic Research that was published in the Wall Street Journal just today. And I've actually read the study that the article is about. It was done by authors at the University of Chicago, Casey Mulligan and Stephen Moore and Philip Kirpin of the Committee to Unleash Prosperity. They compare COVID outcomes in 50 states and the District of Columbia, and they looked at three different variables: the economy, education, and the death rate. Basically, what they saw was that the states that locked down everything, shut down the restaurants, locked everybody at home, and compared those to the states that did the least, and there was no difference. They didn't save any lives. All the states did that shut down the economy was ruin the economy. It didn't do anything to save lives. It didn't do anything to help people along. And that study's going to come out soon, and people are going to see it. And they just destroyed the economies in the state, and it didn't save any more lives than those that left it open so everybody could continue their job, continue their pursuit, and continue their education.
Well, I think that this type of clinical data is what needs to come to the forefront, and we need to pay attention. This is not going to be the last pandemic we face. This is something that's it's going to rear its ugly head again. And granted, I'm not a politician. I don't run a state. I don't know what it takes, but I do know that we better learn from it, because this was really, I mean, there's some suffering that's going to go on for a long time. There's some suffering that went on that it was so difficult for me. I remember the day I found out that California was going to shut down the restaurants, and I'm just sitting here looking at my brothers and sisters, and I have restaurants in California as well, but I'm not insulated, but I have a little bit more threshold than some of these mom and pops. And I'm just sitting there looking, I'm going, there's walk-ins full of food, there's bars full of booze, there's taxes that have to be paid, there's team members that are expecting to come to work, there are banquets that are expecting to happen, and anniversaries that are taking place, and this is all going to get the lights turned off on it like that. What are they going to do with all the food? So many of my fellow chefs paid their employees by feeding them, by giving them, here, take this prime rib home. That's all I got for you. Craziness.